I'll play the comments. He's on with his brother, New Heights podcast, and I know he just lost the Super Bowl, but it certainly sounds like there's a whole lot more attached to this.
As you see yourself or not feel yourself have the success that you once used to have, man, it's a tough pill to swallow. And then on top of that, to not be there in the biggest moments, knowing your team's counting on you, man. Those are all extremely hard things to. It's just a tough reality. I think I could play. It's just whether or not I'm motivated or it's the best decision for me as a man, as a human, as a person to take on all that responsibility.
And he talked about how he plays extra games, usually 3 extra games than anybody else because they're playing in the playoffs and then the Super Bowl. And you might be surprised to learn that he had 97 catches this year. Now, these are all short passes. So he was getting 51 yards per game, so 8.5 yards per catch. He's moving the chains. In 2022, he had 110 catches. He averaged 12.2 yards per catch, 79 yards per game. Here's another thing to keep in mind. He gets a lot of targets, so his catch percentage is 73% this year. It was 73% 2 years ago. He's doing the job, but we see him doing the job not at the level that we expect him to do the job. From the naked eye, you might look and go, all right, he's still Travis Kelce. You can see a decline. I mean, it's there to be seen. It's there to be seen if you want to see it. And sometimes player might not see it, or is Patrick Mahomes going to say anything? Would Andy Reid say something? He's owed $19 million. If they happen to let him go, he retires, I think it's a $2 million salary cap hit. Could they restructure contracts with Mahomes and Chris Jones to keep him? How important is it to keeping him? Because that's Patrick Mahomes' guy. Mahomes shows up every day. He's got that guy. All the stuff that Mahomes goes through, whether it's on the field, off the field, he's got that guy. How important is he? Can you use him like the Patriots did Gronk later in his career, where basically it was just Gronk, stay ready for the playoffs? But that sounded like, and I've always said this, if you start talking about retiring, then you're retiring, or you should retire. But this is right after the Super Bowl that he's saying this. If you talk to him, and your body adjusts to the time of the year. So he'll get to that point where it's like, this is when I normally work out, or this is where it's going to be OTAs. This is where it's going to be training camp. You get ready for that. Your body's ready for that. That's when I think he's going to really realize, do I want to do this? Got a lot of money from his podcast. He's made a lot of money. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. By all accounts, he's in love. Maybe he doesn't want the wear and tear on his body anymore. But that's right now. But I wouldn't have been surprised. Now, I know why he said, hey, I'm going to play 3 more years prior to the Super Bowl, because if he says, when the game is over, then I'll make that decision, then it becomes a little bit more about Travis Kelce. I think he was trying to make this about the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Eagles, because everything that he does is magnified. What he wears when he goes to the game, is she going to be there? What comments? Does he go to one of her concerts? She goes to his game. So there's always going to be a storyline there. And I think he was trying to at least put off another storyline of his future. Do I think that he will retire? I do. You can hear it in his voice, and it's tough to get to that point where you're honest with yourself, because he might say, man, I had 97 catches. Why would I retire? I got the best quarterback. Why would I do that? Well, what they go through to get ready for that next year, and at that age, at that position, even though you got a great coach and a great quarterback, you get to that point where you go, there's other things that I want to do. He's going to have a broadcasting career. Mothership will probably try to bring him in and pair him with his brother. They got their podcast, and he's got a girlfriend. Yeah, Seton.
Yeah, it certainly is a far cry from the guy pre-Super Bowl who was like, I'm gonna be right here, baby. I'm playing, that the way he does things. But right, 97 catches, but it is the second year in a row that he's under 1,000 yards. So I'm sure that when he looks at those numbers, you can look at them and be like, "No, that's still really good," or "Not my level." You can cut them either way you want.
Those aren't bad numbers,
right? But for him, he looks at them as like, "That's not it. I'm 400 yards off of what I should be."
And the thing that I didn't see is any explosive plays. I think if you ask the Eagles privately, their defense wasn't worried about him because everything was going to be right in front of you. He's not going to beat you. He's not going to get behind you, but he's still a clutch receiver. But do you want to spend $19 million on a clutch receiver? And this might be one of those moments with the Kansas City Chiefs where you got to make some hard decisions this offseason. Patrick Mahomes may say to Andy Reid, who I thought had a bad Super Bowl with his play calling and lack of adjustments. He may say to Andy Reid in the front office, you got to help me a little bit here. The dink and dunk is fine. We got a couple of good running backs, but I need something. Xavier Worthy is a fast kid, but I got to have some quality weapons here. And I don't know if you could say, hey, are we interested in Devontae Adams? Would you bring Tyreek Hill back? But, Mahomes has kind of suppressed this, I feel like, because they're winning. He's not putting up great numbers. His numbers are, a little better than average, really, during the regular season. We know what he is in the postseason. We can never take that away from him. But I think it was really difficult for them to be as good as they were, record-wise, when it felt like they had to scrape and scrap and it was down to after a while, if you're a quarterback, you go, man, I'd like to have maybe a blowout here occasionally. They're not blowing people out. They don't score like they used to. And I think that has to wear on Patrick Mahomes. It would me, because if I got an offensive genius as my head coach, let's go. I need some help here. Kareem Hunt, you got him. Isaiah Pacheco is a 7th-round draft pick. Worthy you got, you traded up for. But do you have, Hollywood Brown? He makes it work. But I think it's one of those where he is paddling his butt off underneath the water. It's like, look at that, man. That swan is looking pretty. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, Paulie.
I'm really curious with Travis Kelce and his marketing business team. Do they look at keep going to keep his brand out there or get out now when he must have truckloads of opportunities that he passes on. His brother probably left a year early because he couldn't pass on those level of post-career jobs. I'm curious which way they lean.
But I don't think playing does anything to his brand.
No, probably helps.
I don't think so because there's nothing about him that, he's on the team, but you're not going, man, that guy's unbelievable. There are times when you don't even know he's playing or mention his name. Like his brand is really his podcast and Taylor Swift. That's his brand right now. But if you have deals out there, he's already made commercials. That podcast, I think it was $100 million that it was sold for. You got, Taylor Swift. You want to commit to that relationship. He might be an old 35. You get banged up. That's a lot of postseason games you're playing in.